So recently during my Bible study time, I was reading in the book of Haggai, and the Lord was highlighting to me the importance of ordering our priorities, making sure that God is first in our lives, and that making sure that our foundation is strong in the Lord, so that we are able to carry out the kingdom work that He has prepared in advance for us to do. And so I was just there thinking, and God was just showing me all of these things, and I was so thankful that He had guided me there that day, because it was so relevant to some things that we were walking through with some family members. And I was just like, God, your word shows us who you are, but I love how He also uses it to speak to us, because His word is alive, it is active, it is there for us. Thank you, Jesus, right? And so even though the book of Haggai is so short, it is only 2 chapters long, it's packed full of wonderful truths and lessons that we can learn from and can be transformed by. And so I wanted to just take this opportunity to share some of what I learned. At the time, I just thought, God, this is for my family members. But then He was like, no, you need to share it with others too, because their lives can be transformed and changed by it as well. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at those 2 chapters, and I'm going to share with you the things that the Lord was just impressing upon me and teaching me through the reading of Haggai. And so we see in chapter 1 that Haggai, he's a prophet, and the Lord, he's challenging the people of Judah to obey the Lord and rebuild the temple. And so at this point, they have returned from captivity in Babylon, and they originally did start to rebuild the temple, but they became quickly discouraged by all of the opposition that they were facing, and they became apathetic, and they just stopped doing what they were supposed to do. But then we read on, and they soon turn their focus to their own needs rather than the needs and God's will. Okay, and so instead of building the temple, which at this time was God's house, right? It was a symbol of where the Lord's presence was dwelling. And so they began to build their own homes instead of continuing the building of the temple. And we see in chapter 1, the Lord's first message given to Haggai to share with the people. And in chapter 1, verse 3, it says, "Then the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai. Is it a time for you yourselves to be living in your paneled houses while this house remains a ruin?" So they return from captivity to rebuild. They abandon that. And now at this point, they are walking in disobedience to the Lord, because they are putting their needs, they have elevated their needs, their comforts above the Lord. And so we continue reading there through verse 6. We see that as the people worked harder for themselves, building up their own homes, building up their own livelihoods, the less productive they became. Their focus was on them and them alone, not on the Lord. It says there, they planted much but harvested little. They ate but never had enough. They put on clothes but were not warm. Why? Because they neglected their spiritual well-being first. They did not have God in the proper order. They had not put Him as the priority in their lives. Those comforts took over. And when God is not our first priority, we can see so much of this. If God's not our first priority, the things we set our hands to, they will not prosper, because the Lord is not a part of it. Our efforts will ultimately become futile. Okay, and so we go on to read in verse 9 through 11. "You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home I blew away. Why? Declares the Lord Almighty. Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy with your own house. Therefore, because of you, the heavens have withheld their dew and the earth its crops. I called for a drought on the fields and the mountains on the grain, the new wine, the olive oil, and everything else the ground produces, on people and livestock, and on all the labor of your hands. And so because they took their focus off of the Lord withheld his blessing because they were not walking in obedience to him. We must put God first and everything else after that. And when you do that, when you order your priorities the right way, appropriately, he is a part of that. He gives you the strength to do it, and then he richly blesses you for your obedience. And we see in Psalms 128, 1-2, it says, "Blessed are all who fear the Lord, who walk in obedience to him. You will eat the fruit of your labor. Blessings and prosperity will be yours." So when the Lord is first in our lives, our labor will not be in vain, like we saw when the people returned and they were putting their needs first. They worked and worked and worked and saw nothing for it. Blessings and prosperity become ours when we walk in obedience to the Lord. And it says that numerous times throughout Scripture. And so here we have the people of Judah who are working for themselves. The Lord sees this and he's like, no, you need to get your priorities straight. And so he gives this message to Haggai to give to the people. In 23 days, it was only 23 days after hearing Haggai's first message from the Lord that the people of Judah began to work on rebuilding the temple. They heard the message and immediately, within 23 days, they acted. They didn't say, oh, that's no good, that's so good, but it's not for me right now. Or they didn't say, well, I'll finish my work first and then I'll do it. No, they recognized that their priorities were out of whack, and then they decided to take action to rectify it. And they heeded the advice in Haggai's first message, which in chapter 1, verse 7 says, "Give careful thought to your ways." They took that opportunity to say, wait a second, things aren't right. I'm going to listen to this message and I'm going to do something to change the path that we were on. And so later on in chapter 2, we see verses 18 and 19. We read that upon completing the foundation of the temple, the Lord blessed the people. And it says, from this day on, from this 24th day of the 9th month, give careful thought to the day when the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid. Give careful thought. Is there yet any seed left in the barn? Until now, the vine and the fig tree, the pomegranate and the olive tree have not borne fruit. From this day on, I will bless you. The Lord did not wait for the whole temple to be complete to bless them. He blessed their step of obedience. And so as I was reading, I was just envisioning the Lord, and I was thinking about like a little kid on Christmas. They are just so eager. They're so excited and they're so full of anticipation, right? To get to those presents, to open the presents. And I just envisioned the Lord just sitting there waiting with that same level of excitement and then some. I want to bless my people. I want to bless my people. He wants you to be blessed, but he does not bless disobedience. He blesses obedience. And they didn't have to finish it in order for the Lord to bless them. They just took that step. And so as I was reading this as well, the thought of it being the foundation was just like, whoa, he blessed them once they finished the foundation. Not a pillar, not a wall, not a step, but the foundation. And we know that when we put ourselves in our life, we root it on the foundation of Christ, everything else falls into place. If the Lord is not the foundation of our life, we are unable to build up the rest of our life. Everything else will crumble. The walls of our life will crumble down when Christ is not the center of our life and the foundation of which we do and say and act on everything. The people of Judah, they recognized this. They recognized that when we put God first, that is what we are supposed to do. We must put him first. And they created that foundation, obviously, of the temple, but their act of obedience was showing where their priorities were. They shifted back to putting God as their first priority. The Lord wants to bless us. The Lord wants us to put him first and him to be our first love, right? The greatest love of our life. And when we do that, he promises strength. He promises guidance for everything that we do. And so that was a lot of the same thing, but I want to encourage you to give careful thought to your ways, just as Haggai's message said. Give careful thought to your ways. What position, I'm going to challenge you, what position have you placed God in right now in your life? What have you heard in a message recently, or that the Lord has been convicting you of, that you've just kind of, oh, that was good, that sounds wonderful, but you kind of tucked it away for a rainy day instead of acting on it? If the Lord has taken a back seat in your life, what can you do today in order to reorder your priorities, to say, God, I want to put you first in everything that I say, in everything that I do, and I want my life to be a reflection of that. I want to look set apart. I do not want to blend in with the world. And when you order God and put him in first priority, your life will reflect that. And so maybe you need to wake up an extra hour early to spend time in prayer and studying the Bible, or maybe you need to let go of something like a sport or an activity that's keeping you from spending time in prayer or Bible study or church. Or maybe you have to say no to things more often so that you can say yes to the things the Lord wants you to do. Because when we make time for the Lord and let him lead every single area of our life, we will always have the time for the things that he calls us to do. And remember, there are people waiting on you and the things that the Lord has anointed you with. They're waiting on you to act and to do because they need what God has given you. And so we don't want people to be missing out on a life with Jesus because you're too busy with all the other things and not putting God first. And so I hope this was an encouragement to you, like it was to me, of just getting those priorities in the right order. And if you are just not sure where to begin, I would love to have a conversation with you. I would love to give you practical ways of doing that. I'm telling you, when you get up early, you're gonna have to crucify your flesh if you like to sleep in and say, no flesh, get out of here. I want my time with Jesus. I'll tell you, it will transform your life. Your day will go so much better, so much smoother. It is so worth time in the presence of the Lord. And so I hope that was an encouragement to you. And again, if I can be of any help to help you figure out what that looks like for your life, I would love to be able to do that. I'm just so thankful that I had this opportunity to share with you today. And so I just pray that you have a wonderful and blessed day.